If you've been searching for how to invest in SpaceX using Vanguard, you're definitely not alone. And honestly, it makes sense why this question keeps coming up. SpaceX is one of the most talked about companies in the world right now. It's reshaping space travel, launching thousands of satellites, and building what could become the backbone of global internet infrastructure through Starlink. So naturally, people want a piece of it. They open Vanguard, search for SpaceX, and expect to see a ticker symbol ready to buy. But what happens next usually leads to confusion. Because here's the first thing you need to understand clearly. SpaceX is not a publicly traded company. That means you cannot directly buy its stock through Vanguard, Robinhood, Fidelity, or any traditional brokerage. It doesn't matter which platform you use. If a company is private, its shares are not available on the open stock market. They are owned by early investors, employees, venture capital firms, and a small number of private equity participants. So when people say they are investing in SpaceX, they are almost never doing it directly through a normal brokerage account. Now, before you feel discouraged, this is where the real strategy begins, and where Vanguard actually becomes part of the conversation, just not in the way most people expect. Let's start from the beginning and walk through what you're actually trying to achieve when you say you want to invest in SpaceX. Most people are not just obsessed with the company itself. What they really want is exposure to its growth. They want to benefit from the expansion of space technology, satellite internet, rocket launches, and Elon Musk's broader ecosystem of innovation. That's an important distinction, because while you can't buy SpaceX directly, you can position yourself in ways that benefit from similar trends, and Vanguard is one of the most effective tools for that. So imagine you open a Vanguard account. The first thing that happens is you create a brokerage profile. You provide your personal details, verify your identity, link a funding source, and deposit money into your account. This part is straightforward. Vanguard is designed for long-term investing, not fast trading. It's more like building wealth slowly and steadily rather than chasing hype. Once your account is funded, you are introduced to a wide range of investment products. This is where people often get excited and start typing SpaceX into the search bar, only to realize nothing shows up. And that's when the misunderstanding becomes clear. Vanguard does not offer private equity access to companies like SpaceX for regular retail investors. Even most hedge funds cannot simply buy SpaceX stock whenever they want. It's controlled, private, and highly restricted. So if direct investment is off the table, what do experienced investors do instead? They focus on indirect exposure. Think of it like this. You may not be able to invest in the exact rocket ship, but you can invest in the materials, the systems, the technology ecosystem, and the broader industries that support that rocket ship's existence. On Vanguard, this usually comes through index funds and exchange-traded funds. These funds are collections of hundreds or even thousands of companies bundled together. Instead of betting on one company, you are betting on the overall direction of the market or a sector. Now here's where things get interesting. Even though SpaceX itself is not included in most Vanguard funds, companies that benefit from the same space economy often are. Think about aerospace manufacturers, satellite communication companies, semiconductor producers, and defense contractors. These are the kinds of companies that may appear in broad market index funds. So when you invest through Vanguard, especially in total market index funds, what you are really doing is gaining exposure to the innovation ecosystem that SpaceX is part of, without actually owning SpaceX shares. But let's be real. You didn't click on this topic just to hear about indirect exposure. You probably want to know if there's any way at all to get closer to SpaceX itself. The honest answer is that there are only a few narrow paths, and none of them are simple or guaranteed. One path is through secondary private markets, where accredited investors sometimes buy shares of private companies from early employees or investors. But this is not something Vanguard offers, and it is not available to most retail investors. It requires high net worth status, legal accreditation, and access to private deal flow that ordinary brokerage users simply don't have. Another path is waiting for a potential IPO, an initial public offering, where SpaceX would eventually become a public company and list shares on a stock exchange. If that ever happens, then yes, Vanguard and every other brokerage would likely offer access to it through standard stock purchases or funds. But as of now, there is no confirmed timeline for that, and SpaceX leadership has repeatedly suggested that going public is not a priority because it limits long-term strategic flexibility. So where does that leave you? It leaves you with strategy instead of shortcuts. If your goal is to invest in SpaceX using Vanguard, what you are really doing is building a portfolio that captures the same technological wave. That means focusing on long-term growth sectors like aerospace, artificial intelligence, advanced manufacturing, telecommunications infrastructure, and energy systems that support space operations. When you invest through Vanguard, the process becomes less about chasing one company and more about positioning yourself in the future economy. You are essentially betting that space exploration, satellite networks, and advanced engineering will continue to grow over decades, and that the broader market will reward companies driving those innovations. Now, let's talk mindset, because this is where most people get it wrong. A lot of investors approach SpaceX like a lottery ticket. They think if they could just get in early, they would multiply their money overnight. But real investing, especially through platforms like Vanguard, is not built on short bursts of excitement. It is built on patience, consistency, and long-term compounding. The investors who benefit most from growth industries are usually not the ones trying to find one magical stock. They are the ones steadily building diversified portfolios and letting time do the heavy lifting. So when you think about Vanguard in this context, don't think of it as a doorway into SpaceX specifically. Think of it as a structured system for participating in global innovation without needing insider access. Now imagine this. Instead of trying to find a hidden button that says "Buy SpaceX," you build a portfolio that includes global technology companies, industrial innovators, and infrastructure leaders. Over time, as the space economy expands, the value created by companies in that ecosystem flows into your investments indirectly. You may not see SpaceX listed in your account, but you are still part of the financial wave it helps create. And there is something important here that many beginners miss. Even if SpaceX were available to buy today, putting all your money into a single private company would be extremely risky. Space exploration is capital intensive, highly competitive, and dependent on regulatory, technological, and economic conditions that can change quickly. Diversification is not just a boring financial rule, it is a protection mechanism against uncertainty. Vanguard's entire philosophy is built around that idea. Instead of trying to predict the one perfect winner, you invest in the entire system. That system includes winners, losers, and everything in between. But over time, it trends upward as innovation and productivity grow. So when someone asks how to invest in SpaceX using Vanguard, the real answer is not about finding a hidden stock. It is about understanding that Vanguard is not designed for single company speculation. It is designed for broad market participation. And SpaceX, as groundbreaking as it is just one part of a much larger technological shift happening across the world. Now, if you are still determined to get closer to SpaceX specifically, the most realistic thing you can do today is stay informed about potential future public offerings, while still building your portfolio in a way that benefits from the same industries SpaceX depends on. That way, you are not locked into waiting for one company to become available. You are already positioned in the growth of the entire sector. At the end of the day, investing is not just about what you can buy right now. It is about how you position yourself for what the world is becoming. SpaceX represents the future of space infrastructure, satellite communication, and interplanetary ambition. Vanguard represents a system for capturing long-term global growth. When you understand both of those ideas together, the question shifts from how do I buy SpaceX to how do I build wealth alongside the technologies shaping the future? And that shift in thinking is what separates short-term speculation from long-term financial growth.